paying too much? Fair and fresh discussions about property taxes for your home or business. The Property Tax Show with Brad Hayes, Chicagoland's property tax expert.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, in the studio with me is Stephen Reick, candidate for District 63 of the Illinois House of Representatives. Steve, analysts project that Illinois state retirement systems are going to need $131 billion to cover benefits, but there's only $46 billion in the bank. The Illinois Constitution guarantees that once earned, pension benefits cannot be diminished or impaired. What are some of the ideas or solutions moving forward? Because the way the pensions are right now, it's unsustainable.
The Constitution guarantees the benefits, but it does not require the payment into the fund. There are, Supreme Court cases, McNamee and can't remember the other one at the time, made it clear that when the Constitution was drafted in 1970, the drafters left to the political process the issue of funding pensions. Therefore, there's a disconnect here. Somebody's going to one of these days present a pension check against an account that's overdrawn, and we will have nobody to blame but ourselves. As it relates to the amount of the underfunding, that could be anybody's guess as to how much that really is. I mean, if you look at the rate of return, that is one of the constituent parts of determining how much should be put in the plan. Our rates of return right now are the contributions are based upon a 7.5% rate of return on the money, and anybody would be thrilled with a 7 to 7.5% rate of return, especially in today's market. If you take and look at the rate of return as what it actually should be, which is Eugene Fama at the University of Chicago says it should be closer to 3% because of the nature of the benefits that are being paid, which are guaranteed, then you're looking at an underpayment, underfunding of probably close to 3 times that amount. As far as it relates to how you're going to fix it, the first thing I think we need to do is get it off the budget. We need to carve it off like we would a capital project, like roads or something like that. Carve it off, treat it as a capital project, and find a revenue stream that specifically pays off that debt. Now, people are going to jump on me and say, well, you're in favor of a tax increase. No, I'm not. What I'm in favor of is putting a budget in place that businesses can look at when they see Illinois and how it's handling its affairs, bring business back to this state, grow the revenue base by bringing in jobs and bringing in economic activity, and those things will take care of themselves. But as long as we have a budget that is this budget underfunding is acting like an aneurysm on the Illinois budget, and sooner or later it's going to burst. So those are carving the underfunding off, treating it as a separate item, and let the budget take care of itself, I think is a good first start.
Since 1965, the overall funding per student in the United States has tripled, and today we spend almost $12,000 educating each student every year. However, the educational investment our federal, state, and local governments make has yielded minimal improvement. Test scores, in math and reading have remained flat, and the graduation rates, remain stagnant. What role, if any, should the federal government be playing in education at a state level?
If the federal government's going to do anything at all, it ought to be in the form of block grants. If it's going to collect money, the government does only a couple of things really well. The first one is our military, second to none. And the other thing it does is it collects and transfers money. I don't think beyond doing block grants back to the states, and I don't know why you would want to do send money to Washington so a bunch of it can stick to the hands of bureaucrats in Washington and then send it back to Illinois. Let's just leave the money here. As far as it goes, the state's responsible for education. Always has been. That goes to your question about what's a conservative. Well, I believe in the notion of federalism. And federalism, one of the key elements of federalism is state control of things that the state should have control over. And that is education. I believe that the better way to handle education funding is to give parents the choice as to where their kids are going to go to school or how they're going to be educated. I've read 2 really good books in the last year. One of them is called New World Schoolhouse by Salman Khan, who started Khan Academy. And the other one is The New School by Glenn Reynolds. And both of them talk about our 19th century education system where kids sit in rows and learn how to do basic rote things. But we don't live in the 19th century anymore. We live in the 20th century, 21st century. And we need to have kids who can compete on that level. As far as paying for it, I'm excited about what they're doing in Nevada, which is giving a parent a debit card. Every year they get a debit card loaded with the amount of money that is allocated for state funding of education. The parent can use that money any way he or she wishes. They can use it for special education. They can use it for extracurriculars. They can use it for advanced placement. They can use it for anything that is education related. That gives the parents control, and I think what that would do is bring down the pressure or ramp up the pressure, in a manner of speaking, on schools that are underperforming when parents have the option to take their kids someplace else.
So you think this would increase the level of graduation and increase the test scores?
I think it would make. I think what it would do is it would make kids more competitive, and it would give them hope that what they can do is go into the workforce as they graduate and become productive citizens, raise a family, buy a house, do the things that this country has always been about.
One quick last question. Senate Bill 16, as it's known, would take money primarily from suburban districts and give it to downstate districts. Do you agree with that?
Again, I think it goes back to what we were just talking about. I think that the primary funding of education belongs in the hands of parents. Mm-hmm. And a poor kid in Kankakee is no different than a poor kid in Harvard or Chicago. They all deserve a great education.
Right.
But by gerrymandering where the money goes, I'm sorry,
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. This is Brad Hayes, the Property Tax Show. You've been listening to Steve Reick, candidate for District 63, Illinois House of Representatives.